Hey everybody, this is Don again, and it is time for episode 48 of Practical Reality. It is a Sunday afternoon, 3 days after Christmas, and it is cold. It's probably like, I don't know, my car says it's 34 degrees. I'm not sure I believe that. It feels colder than that, that's for sure. There's not really much of a breeze blowing, thank God, but it is one of those cold, dank, sort of very raw days outside, very typical of New Jersey in the winter. And so I'm sitting in the car. I have no desire to walk around and or sit on a picnic table or something like that and try to make one of these videos for you. So it's a great day. Every day above ground is a good one. And today's topic is going to be something that I saw on LinkedIn maybe, I don't know, last week sometime. And it was a post in the Mental Health Advocates group, which I'm a part of, talked about requirements versus expectations. The post read, I am at a point in my life where I no longer have expectations. I have requirements. Respect my time, match my effort, keep your word. Always be honest, stay consistent. Those are my requirements, not expectations. Now, to me, that post came across as the person posting it has sort of a sense of entitlement, as if they are going to be expecting making these requirements of others without necessarily setting an example of their own. The comment that I posted said, I agree with these statements, but just temper them with the realization that before you can require anything from anybody else, you need to set high requirements for yourself. No one with any sense of self-respect is going to follow someone who sets a bad example. Without these self-requirements, then your expectations or requirements of others sound nothing more than empty entitlements. So even though that may not have been the exact intention of the person who posted the post, I felt it was necessary to say, because there are a lot of people out there who may read it that way, as if to say they are entitled to respect and for people to respect their time and match their effort, so on and so forth, without necessarily setting the example for themselves. I know that I have encountered plenty of people out there who feel that they are entitled to this type of requirements that are in this post without necessarily having to set the example that I'm talking about. In my opinion, you cannot possibly set any sort of requirements for anyone unless you have set the example that others will follow and that others will see in you. And the expectation that you are entitled to this sort of respect and deference from other people just comes from a poor upbringing. And the people who have this sort of false sense of entitlement are sort of inauthentic. I think that's the best word to describe it. Inauthentic. Yeah, and you can tell that usually right away when someone comes across that way to you. If you are a person who sets an example and makes a point of setting an example of the opposite of that, which would be authenticity, then you can sense that inauthenticness in them almost immediately. And then it becomes impossible for you to take anything that they say seriously. And I think that the message that I've been putting out in the past few videos that I've done has relevance here. For instance, 2 videos ago, I spoke about filtering your influences. Well, okay, this is a very good example of why that's necessary. If you are setting an example of authenticity for others to follow, that means you have read, you have studied, you've delved into yourself, you've cared enough about yourself to actually explore the topic of what it means to be authentic. And it's, since most people live a completely unconscious life, it's easy to see when people have not done this, when you can sense their inauthenticity, like immediately. And you can tell that they have not spent the time to develop their character, for lack of a better word, and their beliefs about themselves and about their sense of entitlement are reinforced by the people that they socialize with, who more than likely have the same sort of sense of false entitlement. And, they sit together in their little bubble and reinforce this idea that they are superior to others, and they don't need to treat others with respect or set an example of love, because it's just beneath them to do so. And then in my Christmas message, I spoke about how the central message of Jesus Christ was love thy neighbor, okay? And how revolutionary that was at the time in the midst of the Roman Empire, which had conquered most of the then known world and did so by force. And how, which I didn't actually mention in the video, a further point I could have made, how that love of Jesus Christ eventually it wasn't overnight, but eventually became the message of the Roman Empire itself. Now, they may have continued their conquest, but at the same time, it became the Holy Roman Empire, which means that love conquered the Roman Empire, at least to some degree. The message of love became something that was necessary, an essential part of the empire itself. Now, that without the presence of Jesus Christ and the spread of Catholicism, that could never have happened. And I think it's easy to see that when you meet someone who has that sort of false sense of entitlement, that the message of love, or the philosophy behind love thy neighbor, is not ingrained in their behavior. They're in a way you could say that they have sort of a predator type of mentality. They're out to conquer you or simply disregard you. It's sort of like when you meet somebody on the street, you pass somebody on the street. How often does this happen if you think about it? If you pass somebody on the street, you look them in the eye. How often do they look you back in the eye? It's pretty rare. It really is pretty rare. And I'm not really sure I understand why. But could be because they don't want to have any sort of encounter with you. They feel like they are better than you, and they don't want to actually to recognize you or greet you in any sort of way. So that to me is an indication that their basic mode of behavior, their basic philosophy towards life, does not include the very basic golden rule of love thy neighbor. So then this all flows back to another concept that I was touching on in an earlier video about personal evolution. And if you are not setting this example of love as your mode of behavior, as your basic attitude towards others, then you can't think of yourself as an authentic person. And that is going to show in who you meet, who you socialize with, how people react to you. And if you are a person who is on that sort of journey of personal evolution, then you're not going to make time you're going to recognize immediately when somebody is inauthentic, and you're not going to make time for them. You're going to concentrate yourself, and this is again going back to filtering your influences. You're going to make time only for people who share your own sense of love, your own sense of obeying the golden rule. And that can mean that you might not have that many friends, because there are not that many people in the world who take that journey of personal evolution that seriously. And I know that simply because I look for that all the time, and I'm not, I don't have many friends. It's not a result of necessarily only seeking that kind of people out. It may be. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. But I do know that I don't find it necessary to have a lot of friends because I don't meet that many people who seem to share that journey of personal evolution and take it very seriously. And I think it's kind of automatic that when you meet somebody and you can sense their sense of inauthenticity, that you automatically lower your opinion of them. And you really have trouble taking anything that they say seriously. So if you yourself are on a journey of personal evolution, then you start to think seriously about how you are perceived by others. Now, I know that there's a general attitude that you don't really have to worry about what people think of you. And I agree with that. But if you're going to try to be setting an example of authenticity and using the golden rule as your sort of mode of behavior, then it's not that you're worried about how people perceive you. If people judge you incorrectly, you're more concerned with being seen as an example, a force for good, a person who is someone that people might want to follow. So it's not like you're worried about whether or not they care about you. It's more like you are trying to set an example that will help others to gain a better perspective on life and to be able to adopt a more loving attitude towards other people. So your effort to set an example of authenticity and adopting love as your normal mode of behavior flies in the face of existentialism. And now, just to review, for those who don't know exactly what existentialism is, it's the philosophy that the world lives by and doesn't really realize it. Okay, if you can wake up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you're fine, however you treat people, whether you treat them badly or treat them well, and you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm okay, no matter what you've done, then that's existentialism. Because existentialism basically says that you owe nothing to anyone. And if you're going to be a moral person, if you're going to set an example of authenticity and have love as your normal mode of behavior, then you cannot possibly say that you are an existentialist, because you fly right in the face of the central message of existentialism. Friedrich Nietzsche was the basic proponent of existentialism that I'm familiar with, that I read about. And he felt like man owes nothing to any other man. If you're going to be Superman in his philosophy, you have no morality whatsoever. You treat people however you want to treat them, and you take what you can from others without any sort of sense of guilt or shame whatsoever. So if you're going to be the type of person who wants to set an example of self-respect and love and, act by following the golden rule, then you are not going to be in step or in tune with the vast majority of society. And you may be a person who has not that many friends, but the friends you do have are going to be genuine. And I think that if we go back to the beginning, requirements versus expectations, if you are setting an example by making love your normal mode of behavior and treating others well, then you are authentic. And by doing so, yes, you will attract people to you who share that same value. And you'll be able to tell when people who don't approach you, and you'll be able to filter them out quickly without any damage to your own sort of internal environment. And again, as is always the message in my videos, the control of your internal environment and the ability to regulate your own emotions is the central message of everything that I talk about. And the only path to happiness is to realize that the only thing you can control is the internal environment. So I hope everybody gets something out of this and realizes that myself, and I try to set an example where love is my central mode of behavior, and take that as an invitation to join me on that journey of personal evolution, where you control your internal environment by making love the central message that you radiate into the world every single day. Have a great day. Peace, love, and prosperity to everyone. And I'll probably be putting out something on New Year's Day to wish everybody a Happy New Year.